transformed into God's likeness from one degree of glory to another. Dear brothers and sisters, in today's Gospel, Jesus tells His hearers, "Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." Here He invites us to go beyond a righteousness that is restricted only to the observance of religious norms, to a righteousness intent on loving God and neighbor. The laws and commandments, such as those regarding murder, adultery, retaliation, and so on, were merely a minimum standard given to the people for righteous living. The problem with the Pharisees and scribes was that they became fixated with this bare minimum, refusing to go beyond it in the true spirit of these commandments, which is nothing but the love of God and neighbor. Thus, in His Sermon on the Mount, Jesus not only condemns murder and adultery, but also the anger and impurity that lies at their root. Dear friends, we too often have the tendency to qualify ourselves as righteous just because we have complied with the bare minimum that is asked of us. Do I consider myself a good Catholic just because I attend Mass on Sundays, do a bit of personal prayer, and regularly pay my tithes and church subscription? Do I consider myself a good person just because I comply with social norms, do a bit of charity, and refrain from criminal activity? The laws and commandments of God and of the Church are a framework within which we are invited to take the extra mile in our relationship with God and others. In his spiritual exercises, St. Ignatius of Loyola asks the retreatant to ask himself the following question: what have I done for Christ? What am I doing for Christ? And what ought I to do for Christ? This question leads us to a philosophy of doing more for Christ and thereby also doing more for others. A kite is tethered firmly with string, not to pull it down, but to enable it to soar higher. Similarly, our religious laws are not burdensome obligations, but rather the way to greater freedom in our relationship with God. For example, the obligation of Sunday Mass is a reminder to take some time out from our busy schedules and spend some time every week worshipping God with our Christian community. As we grow in this sentiment, we will soon find ourselves eager to go for Mass and spend time in prayer as often as possible. Let us pray today for the grace to grow in our practice of religion to a deeper relationship with God and our neighbor. Then the words of today's first reading will be fulfilled in our lives as we are transformed into God's likeness from one degree of glory to another.